Bringing on our experts on the BWI Live Recruiting Show, Ryan Snyder and Sean Fitz with us. Guys, thank you for giving us some time to talk to Curtis. Now we've got to get into the news of the day. So, Fitz, how you doing? And tell us what's going on with Penn State football.
Well, first off, that was great having Kurt. He's one of the great personalities that's come through here, so it's awesome to see that. And I agree with the chat here that he deserved to be drafted, but he's in a pretty darn good spot, so pretty happy for that. I also enjoyed his thing about the taxes there at the end. If you watched, you saw on Instagram, I think it was over the weekend, Jair Brown went to buy a Cybertruck, and it was one of the funniest Instagram videos I've ever seen because he got to the end, his financial advisor was like, "Nope, don't do that," and it's a good little insight into what these young NFL players deal with, because he was hook, line, and sinker, and then his financial guy said, "Nah, I don't think that's the best." But we're here to talk about recruiting. Penn State picked up a commitment on Wednesday evening from Matt Henderson from Virginia, another tight end, and he's a really intriguing prospect. And if you looked this morning on On3, he is a 4-star prospect, 90 overall rated, or 90 overall rating from On3. This is a guy like fits the mold for what Penn State has looked for in a tight end in the last several cycles. One of those guys that plays high school wide receiver is going to have to learn how to transition. But you look at Luke Reynolds, you look in this cycle at Andrew Olesh, you look at some of the guys that they've put into the draft recently, and Matt Henderson fits that bill. I'm probably going to talk about that. The interesting part of the back end of that evaluation in a little bit, but Penn State on the board with Matt Henderson on Wednesday evening, another offensive pickup for the Nittany Lions.
Ryan, I know you've done some work on this. This was a fairly quick recruiting process where he was offered just a couple weeks ago, and now he's a commit. So what's going on here in terms of why such a fast developing recruitment story?
Well, first off, T. Frank, how's my audio? Is it good?
You're
okay,
all good.
Usually we try to square that away before we join, and I usually screw it up, so that's why I bring it up. But just offered on, what was it, April 26th, I believe. So just under 2 weeks ago. And his workout was a couple days before that. And the feedback right after that workout was Penn State is all in on him. And the big thing is, look, he's been a wide receiver the last year or two, and they really wanted to make sure, hey, look, we know you're athletic. We know you can catch the ball. We know you have everything we want to see from that perspective. Can you block? And so the feedback we got was when he came up in January, that was a big discussion with them. And he's really been working on that ever since, giving them an opportunity to just kind of show, how he's improving from a technique perspective in different ways. And so Hal goes, of course, back down there 2 weeks ago. It's the spring evaluation period, contact period, whatever you want to call it these days. And he gets an opportunity to really kind of see him up close and see how he's progressing from that perspective. And all the feedback right away was, that he's really kind of exceeded where they thought he would be from that perspective. But if or at least more I've learned about Matt, like, this shouldn't be a surprise. This is a guy who's 4.6 GPA. I don't even know how that's possible. I assume he's taking honor, next level.
They added together our GPAs, and I think they got that. So
I don't know. I think
maybe
wasn't that good back in the day, buddy. We might be a little short. Anyway, just kidding. I made honor roll once, actually. Never mind. Well, let's move on from that. But just a really good student, vice president of his class. Like, this is a guy who, everything off the field is excellent. This is also a player who, his dad played at Richmond back in the day. His mom was a basketball player at Richmond back in the day. So very athletic family. So I think it's just another very good example of Penn State out scouting other schools or really understanding the landscape of tight end, especially. I mean, the tight end, man, how often are they doing this? I mean, I wrote this last night. Like, how many offers did Andrew Olesh have before? It was like 4 or 5 Power 4 offers, Penn State offers. And within a month, he's got 12, quality schools. Same with Linkon Cure. I mean, Linkon Cure, he was, the guy we've been talking about so long, is one of the best tight ends in the country. He had 4 offers when Penn State offered. Fast forward a month later, he's got 12 new ones after that. So it's just another example, I think, of Ty Howell doing a good job. And the recruiting staff, I want to make sure the recruiting staff is mentioned there too, because they get the ball rolling on a lot of that stuff of just kind of understanding what they want at tight end, what they're looking for, and going out and being aggressive with those guys. So this is another great example of that, really. And 4-star rating already at On3, and Charles gave him a 90, which is the lowest 4-star. Wouldn't be shocked at all if he goes to all 22, puts up some great numbers, and he's moving up.
Fitz, when it comes to the tight end position, I don't want to because Ryan just gave us a great background on who he is as a player, and I don't want to diminish all of those things, but it does seem like with a position that a lot of teams don't play in high school, it's about height, weight, speed. It's about what is your physical, tangible ability, and I think is Penn State just better at identifying guys who are going to translate all of those traits to the next level, or is there something deeper here that isn't just the physical freak ability?
Yeah, the Homer hat says yes, but also the data backs that up. It's really remarkable. And I just sent you a tweet thread from Cody Belair from On3 talking about evaluating tight ends. And it's very interesting because you take a look at the draft. And of course, that's how we measure ourselves in terms of ratings and things like that. But he had a friend in personnel hit him up and say, good luck ranking tight ends. None of these dudes played tight end in high school, and half of them are former walk-ons. That's like pretty accurate. I mean, when you look at what's out there, Theo Johnson and Brock Bowers, kind of the outliers in this, and Jatavian Sanders as well, in this class. But it comes from all over. You had guys that, Cade Stover was a DN. Ben Sinnott was a 6-sport athlete that walked on at Kansas State. I mean, there's so many guys that just don't make any sense. But you throw the data out there. Penn State's recruiting has found these guys, has developed these guys, and has put these guys in the draft. I mean, until, Theo went a little bit later, Penn State had a run of second-round picks. And that's outstanding. So, yes, I think Penn State is kind of a curve setter when it comes to tight end. They recruit as well as anybody in the country. And you look at that room, and there's good players in that room. I mean, I don't know that Jerry Cross is going to play much at Penn State. He's a good player. Like that's the standard in the room. It's, we kind of put that one up on a pedestal along with a couple other positions at Penn State. And there's reason for it because the data backs it up. So yes, they have been better at finding these guys. As Ryan said, when they find these guys blow up. Matt Henderson was not quite there. Michigan State was the big contender right there. But they found these types of players that are not sometimes the flat. I mean, Brenton Strange was not, I think he may have been a low 4-star, but he was not a big name prospect, a flashy guy. You look at some of the, Andrew Appleyea was Penn State or Michigan, which is great. But, like Ohio State wasn't coming for that, Alabama, all that kind of stuff. And Luke Reynolds
was also a 3-star when he committed, a guy who just blew up during the recruiting process because of the early identifiers, right?
Right. And you're certainly not going to hit them all. I mean, you can't hit any, you can't do that in any position, but Penn State, in terms of what they've done as tight end recruiters and tight end evaluators and things like that from Bowen, that fault line from 2018, where we're talking about Jonathan Holland as the starting tight end. And then all of a sudden Pat Freiermuth comes in. Since then, I don't want to say cruise control, but Penn State's been like on an absolute tear at that position. So that certainly helps. They did it last year with Luke Reynolds, and Luke Reynolds added Alabama and Georgia. You never publicized them, but after he committed to Penn State. So like, other schools are taking notice here. Olesh is interesting because it's like one of those ones that's like, yes, there's a national profile in that recruitment now. But this is an in-state kid that plays a position that Penn State has recruited probably better than any other position. So that one still makes a lot of sense to me. I said it last week on the show. Penn State, or actually it might have been earlier this week, Penn State's going to take 2 tight ends, and we're not really including Brady O'Hara in there. So still going to go full bore after Olesh. We'll see what happens with some of those other guys and those other official visits they have set up. But it's a good spot to be in if you're Ty Howell right now.
Ryan, go for it. Yeah,
I want to add, like, one other thing too. I'd say is that the region overall, I wouldn't say is deep at producing tight ends, but over the last 4 or 5 years, it has been consistently producing like 1 or 2 top tight ends regularly. And Penn State's done a great job with that. I mean, think about Joey Schlaffler. I mean, he ended up being a 4-star, obviously a PA kid. Of course, you have Rappelier, who's from New York, ended up playing at New England schools. You have Luke Reynolds. Like, it is consistently produced like at least like 1 or 2 top 10 tight ends, and Penn State's done a great job at identifying them early and staying on them. So it's it's worked out from the perspective of, there is usually one or two really good guys at that position in the area, and Penn State does a great job in the region. Go ahead, Sean.
And they've established themselves as a school that produces them, and like this is where you want to go if you're a tight end. And you look at, there's a handful of schools out there. Of course, Brock Bowers just came out of Georgia. Georgia's done a good job before him. Michigan's done a wonderful job. Iowa has done a wonderful job. There's a certain pantheon of schools that are out there recruiting tight ends, and Penn State is in that mix, and they've done a good job of selling that because Linkon Cure is out there, but they had some national interest from some other guys in the last couple of cycles. It just so happens to boil down, and as Ryan mentioned, there's a couple of top guys in this region that's really worked out for Penn State.
I mean, even Khalil Dinkins ended up being a top 10 tight end by the time it was all said and done.
How does the class dynamic? Let's zoom out now. Let's look at the class dynamic with Matt Henderson committing. You mentioned 2 tight ends, Brady O'Hara as kind of an athlete on offense. Are we getting into an area where the numbers are building up to where we understand where the pain points might be from a commitment numbers perspective? Like have the gates narrowed enough that you guys have a better view of these things, or is it still wide open, Ryan?
I still think at 13 commitments, it's more wide open than not. Okay. But that's why June's going to be so interesting, right? Because all they got to do is pluck off 4 or 5 guys in June. Especially if a couple of them are on offense, and then it becomes much more tricky. Now, don't get me wrong. Like Sean, I'm sure you're going to point out, they have 9 offensive guys. Like, yeah, on offense, it is probably a little easier to pinpoint overall. But when you still have that wiggle room, and then they have some top guys out there, we've seen before where they maybe take a scholarship that we thought would be on defense, and then they'll use it on that offensive side. So there's enough wiggle room, I think, that you can still point to those top offensive tackles and those top wide receivers that they want. But yeah, offense is filling up pretty quick.
Fitz, what are your thoughts on the situation?
Same. You got 9 and 4. Like most of the action, the rest of the way out is going to be on defense. That doesn't mean they won't, add more on offense. Obviously, receiver, a big sticking point there. Offensive line, tackle specifically, a big sticking point there, and then probably one more tight end. And then it's a little bit more open on the defensive side of the ball. Ryan and I were talking yesterday. Defensive line, good luck projecting that one right now. By the way, Ryan's got his projected class by the summer on the site right now. So
for offense, defense, I need give me like 5 days for that one, guys. I'm still chipping away at defense. That's hard.
I just think one last thing, and I think that this is such an on-brand commitment from Matt Henderson in this class that, first off, I'm not going to say it came out of nowhere because Ryan was talking about this. He was trying to tell you about Matt Henderson a couple weeks ago, and if you missed that, it's because you didn't subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. You should do that. Subscribe for 2 months and get it for $1 because you are here on the YouTube channel supporting what we do here. Code PSU1, 2 months for $1, and you get access to our recruiting information, the insider perspective from these guys, because we can't get to everything here on the show, not just because it's a short format where we're only on here for an hour, but also because like the premium content, that's what we're giving you on the site. So go check it out for $1 and you'll get great access to all these things.